Bethany Hamilton felt the water shift beneath her before she felt anything else. She was 13, lying flat on her surfboard off Kauai's north shore, one arm trailing in the water, waiting for the next wave with two friends nearby. Then came the impact. Sudden, violent, silent. A 14-foot tiger shark rose from directly beneath her and closed its jaws around her left arm, just below the shoulder. In under 2 seconds, it was gone, taking her arm with it. She never saw it coming. One moment, her arm was resting in the water. The next, she was staring at where it used to be. The ocean turned deep red almost instantly. There was no pain yet, just a strange silence in her own head, the kind that comes right before the body realizes exactly how much trouble it's in. Her friend's father reached her within seconds, pulled her onto his board, and ripped his own leash off to use as a tourniquet. They paddled for shore as fast as physically possible, Bethany conscious but fading, blood trailing behind them the entire way. By the time they reached the sand, she had lost more than 60% of her blood. Paramedics later said a 5-minute delay would have killed her. 19 days after losing her arm, Bethany paddled back into that same ocean. She had to relearn everything, paddling straight with one arm, popping up without the balance she used to rely on, ducking under waves without the second arm that used to help her stay down. Her body had to build entirely new muscle memory from nothing. 2 years later, she was competing again. Not in adaptive events, but against surfers with both arms, on the same waves, under the same rules. She became one of the most recognized professional surfers in the world. When people ask about the attack now, she describes it less like the worst day of her life, and more like the day her life actually started. Rodney Fox's encounter happened 4 decades earlier, in December 1963, off South Australia. During a spearfishing competition, he was favored to win. He was underwater when something slammed into him from below with a force that felt less like an animal and more like being hit by a car. A great white shark had clamped its jaws around his entire torso, crushing his ribs and puncturing a lung on impact. The shark began dragging him downward. Rodney understood with total clarity that he had seconds before he either escaped or drowned inside its grip. He reached forward and drove his fingers directly into the shark's eyes. It wasn't calculated. It was instinct. The shark let go. He surfaced into chaos. His chest was torn open along the rib cage, organs visible beneath torn muscle, blood pouring out fast enough that the divers who reached him assumed he was already dead. They dragged him into a boat and held his wounds shut with bare hands the entire ride to shore. At the hospital, it took over 400 stitches to close what remained of his torso. Surgeons later said he survived by a margin so small they hadn't expected to be telling him that. Most people who nearly die inside a shark's mouth don't go looking for sharks again. Rodney did the opposite. He spent the following decades becoming one of the most influential shark conservationists in the world, eventually helping engineer the first underwater cages used to study great whites safely. The same jaw that nearly killed him became the reason he spent his life protecting the animal attached to it. Mike Coots was 18, floating off Kauai in October 1997 when a tiger shark attacked from below, clamping onto his right leg and yanking him underwater. There was no time to think. He turned and started hitting the shark, striking blindly until it released him and disappeared. He surfaced to find his leg barely recognizable. His friends hauled him onto a board and paddled hard for shore, where paramedics stabilized him before airlifting him to a hospital. Surgeons tried to save the leg. They couldn't. It was amputated below the knee within hours. Within months, Mike was back in the ocean, relearning to balance and paddle on a prosthetic leg, never designed for saltwater. What started as physical relearning became something else. He picked up a camera and began photographing sharks specifically, spending increasing time voluntarily in the water with the exact species that took his leg. He became a professional wildlife photographer and one of the most outspoken advocates against shark finning in the world, using his own scars as evidence that the animal people feared most wasn't the villain headlines made it out to be. Paul de Gelder's attack didn't happen while surfing. He was a Navy clearance diver, highly trained, running a counter-terrorism exercise in Sydney Harbor in February 2009, when a bull shark attacked without warning from below,
clamping onto his right arm and leg simultaneously. The force severed his hand almost instantly and tore catastrophic damage into his leg. His training kicked in before panic could. He fought the shark directly until it let go, though by then the damage was done. He was pulled from the water, losing blood fast, and doctors amputated both his hand and his leg below the knee within hours, the only way to keep him alive. For most people, that combination of injuries ends any thought of returning to elite physical work. Paul spent the next year relearning to walk, then swim, then dive, using prosthetics engineered specifically for underwater use, equipment that barely existed before people like him needed it. He returned to elite-level fitness, became a sought-after motivational speaker, and now works directly alongside shark researchers, using the attack that nearly killed him to challenge the fear that keeps most people from understanding these animals at all. 4 attacks, 4 oceans, 4 decades, 4 sets of circumstances, 4 people with every reason to never trust open water again. Bethany lost an arm at 13 and became one of the greatest surfers alive. Rodney was bitten nearly in half and spent his life protecting the species that did it. Mike lost a leg and turned his trauma into a lens through which the world could see sharks differently. Paul lost a hand and a leg in a single attack and rebuilt himself stronger than before.